Now, this event has been very instrumental in the fact that we have an amazing lady who is here every single month, and people don't really recognize her as much as she should. So one thing that we do in other startup grinds across the country and across the world is they give standing ovations when people come to the stage. So with that, I'm going to bring Christina along to the stage, and I'd love you guys to welcome her to the stage. Thank you.
Look at this, look at you guys. Welcome to our December Startup Grind. My name is Christina Long. I'm the proud owner of CML Collective, graphic design and communication services company. I also work to help support and grow minority entrepreneurs. Tonight, though, I am here on behalf of Startup Grind to ask some really good questions and to get us motivated as we begin to close out this year and look ahead to 2018. Is that okay? We have an esteemed, wonderful panel who's going to be coming up here. I'm going to introduce them, but before I do that, you guys are what's making this energy so amazing in this room today. So I have a couple of questions for you all. First of all, how many of you all have been to Startup Grind before? All right, look at that. How many have been to more than 6 Startup Grinds? Keep your hands up. 7 Startup Grinds, 8 Startup Grinds, 9 Startup Grinds, 10 Startup Grinds, 11. There you go. Raymond, I'm gonna give you a hand. Thank you so much for being able to be here with us in the fold. That's wonderful. Well, with that being said, Raymond knows a lot about what happens. He asks great questions, but this night, again, is for all of us. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and welcome our entrepreneurs to the stage. I wasn't given any particular order, no favoritism, just who I see is who I'm gonna call. Let's go ahead and start with Jeff Turner. Jeff, let's come on. Welcome to the stage, friend. Pick a chair, any chair. Now, for those of you all who do not know, Jeff is the visionary behind, or he will say he's one of the visionaries behind Spirit Aerosystems. He had an opportunity, and we learned in his story that he could have taken his retirement when Boeing decided to pull out of Wichita and just go and be retired. But instead, he made the difficult decision, but a decision that he felt like he must make to be able to create something new. And we have Spirit Aerosystems. And what did we just read about Spirit? They are booming, they are growing. Welcome, Jeff Turner, again. Then we go to Brian Williamson. Come on up, Brian. Welcome to the stage, Brian. Absolutely. What we learned with Brian, his story was incredible. Culture, creating that strong culture inside of his company was so important. Brian was very fascinated with the idea of taking topical applications in the pharmaceutical industry and being able to grow that into a company that actually sold to an international company. And so his opportunity to do that, again, very big and international audience. However, he never lost sight of the importance of people and culture in his company. That's what we learned in Brian's story. So thank you again for being here, Brian. Come on up, Beth. Beth, she gave us a little PG-13. Beth is real with her words. Beth is the designer behind Coco Dolce. Again, not just a chocolate place, a place to be. She created a chocolate experience that helped to be able to give people, again, a place to go, a place to celebrate high-end chocolates. She built a brand where she didn't even have to advertise. People came and they came back, and that was really important. However, when it was time to expand, Beth also experienced the highs of expansion. She also experienced some public failures. A public fail that she talked us through in her Startup Grind episode. But with Beth, it was always good because she said there's life after death. There is definitely life after failure. Thank you for being here, Beth. All right, come on up, my friend Scott Redler. Scott's co-owner of Freddy's Frozen Custard. Here you go, sir. Welcome to the stage. So with Scott, we got the amazing story of what it was like to actually help to grow Freddy's Frozen Custard. Again, they just started with the idea of just having one, and now they're all over the country quality. Quality and people matter. They do not skimp on price when they are looking to build their product. It's all about quality, and he gave us a really funny story about what it was like to bring hot dogs to their market. Again, with Scott, it's about family as well. The culture that they've built inside of their company is felt not just from those who are employees, those who are franchise owners, and us who are customers. Welcome to the stage, Scott. And last but certainly not least, this is my mentor. This is Curtis Witten of Ventech. Welcome to the stage, Curtis. So Curtis has been knowing me since I was a little girl. And I've been able to, as a young child, watch Curtis's entrepreneurial journey. He started in, well, actually vending machines, janitorial services, and he's been able to now grow his company into a very successful security company. Curtis will tell you it's not what you know, it's not who you know, but it's who knows you. Curtis has a story where he moves from the grind. He moves from a very troubled and sometimes complicated background as it comes to what people claim as success and achievement, to be able to achieve greatness in his company. And he's here to share greatness with us tonight. So please, again, help me welcome Curtis. So, with each startup grind, we were able to ask people where they came from, what their background was, what's some successes, what's some failures. And so if you want to go deep into their stories, they're all available to you on the Startup Grind website or on YouTube in video format. But tonight, we're going to focus on some practical application. Is that okay? Practical application. So with that being said, how many of you all, by a show of hands, are prepared to launch a vision, launch your dream? You're on the cusp of launching. Let's start right there with launch. And then we'll go to those who just have a dream, who might be a little scared, but let's start with launching. Beth, when we think about you, she does. Ladies first. When we think about you and your story with launch, for those people who you saw a few of their hands, what would be some advice that you would give to them to let them launch with success? What are some key factors to launch with success? Benny's got you.
I'm an over-preparer. I always have been. I overstudy. And I would tell you, and I think we probably would all agree, that there's not enough pre-work that you can do prior to a launch. You won't be disappointed in the homework that you do. Be thoughtful, be purposeful, and then take the leap. Do we agree?
Very good. Now, you guys, most of you guys have microphones, so feel free to jump in there as well. Jeff, piggyback on that. Preparing to launch, what are some success indicators for people who are poised to launch?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about that when I think about my experience at Spirit versus my experience helping startups, and it is a world of difference.
Yeah.
Because we had a great product, we had a great workforce, we had a great factory, we had so many things that made us successful that it was really kind of like falling off a log. But when I watch people that are trying to start a new business from scratch, I mean, they don't have customers, they don't have products yet, they just have a burning desire. So I think from my perspective, the most important question is, what can you provide that somebody's going to buy?
What can you provide that somebody's going to buy? That is so different than having just a desire, a wish that we're gifted, we're skilled, we have a cool product. That's different than launching with the customer and client in mind. When we're thinking about launching as well, identifying a target market, identifying your customers. Scott, can you talk about how you all looked at who your customer would be? What was that process like?
Well, it was a little easy with Freddy's because who doesn't want steak burgers, fries, and custard? So, can I leave now? Am I done?
No.
So I thought you said this was true false. It's okay.
Yeah.
No, it really is interesting. We spend a lot of time trying to understand who our guest really is. And, you know, a lot of people go in the traditional 25 to 54, or all these different sections that have different, you know, housewives, mothers, families, everything. We really think we're more value-oriented than price-oriented. So someone who really does appreciate the energy and effort that goes into our product and hospitality really is our guest, and that's our target market.
That's very good.
Someone who likes a steak burger when steam comes off it when you eat
Okay.
it.
Yeah,
you know,
how many
so
of
we get
how
all
many
that,
of
so
those does that apply
it's
to?
important. So
But that
that's a
brings up
critical thing.
something. That could be a pretty wide target market. And sometimes when talking with some of the marketers in the room, they talk about the value of having very strong and deep customer circles or target market circles. Is there a balance between what's the better approach? Should you work to go deep in a target market, or is it okay to really look at wide possibilities with the target market initially?
I think the business model varies based on what you're selling, right?
Yeah.
So there's certain ones that you need one person to come in and buy a $300,000 Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
And then there's some that need a lot of people to go through the drive-through at Taco Bell, which is great. I mean, and just understanding that and making sure your business model matches what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Now, Curtis, when you got started, you kind of looked at fields where maybe you had some experience in, especially when you got started with your security portion of your company. Can you talk about what it was like to focus on your strengths going into a business as opposed to focusing on your weaknesses and trying to overcome those and growing and launching a business?
Well, I would say that the first thing I want to say is failure is not fatal. Failure is not fatal. So I went in with that mindset, but I think when you're talking about understanding what your gifts are, understanding what you're good at, and then surrounding yourself with people that may not have stronger. I'm trying to figure out the right word, but surrounding yourself with good people. I would say people that you may not have a skill set, but they have that skill set.
Absolutely. So again, building that good team and helping to build complementary skills is really good. But what about if you are in an industry where you have an interest in it, but maybe not all the expertise in a particular field, and an opportunity comes to you? Brian, you had some of that experience that happened to you. Again, sound understanding, but maybe not necessarily the experience in something that was very technical. Do you fear, or did you have fear for that opportunity, or did you dive in? I know the answer, but tell them.
Yeah, well, go ahead if you want. Yeah, no, you've got to have a little bit of fear, but if you have too much fear, you'll never get off the ground. So I think the biggest thing is recognize your strengths, but don't have such a big ego that you don't realize your weaknesses, and find those people that complement your strengths. And there is nobody in here that can do all of it in a business. So you have to surround yourself with good people that can fill your weaknesses. So I think one thing I heard a couple of weeks ago is don't let ego get in the way and cover your blind spots. And those are two really important things. I mean, cover your blind spots as much as you can, and good people will do that for you.
That's very, very good. I love it. Is this okay? We doing all right so far? Okay, very good. Now, when you are preparing to introduce yourself and your company to the public, personal branding kind of matters. If we were to ask each of you what your personal brand is, could you please just share with us very succinctly what your personal brand is and how you develop that? We'll start from the end. Go ahead, Mr. Stern.
Personal brand. Another good saying I heard, it's a Dutch saying. We sold our company to a Dutch firm, and they say this in the Netherlands. Reputation comes on foot, and it leaves on horseback. And I think that's really important. So I think my personal brand is just integrity and reputation. I mean, that's everything. That's all you've got. So you protect that with everything.
I love it. That was a good call. Good call, Jeff. You can follow him now.
I agree with him. I've never thought about it that way, but I guess when you do, I started out selling our company to the markets, to the public markets, and I can tell you what they look for is they look for integrity, they look for competence, but they really, really look for passion. Do you really care about what you're doing? Do you have a deep fire? And once you show that, man, people link into it. When I'm out looking to see if I want to help somebody in their startup, I'm looking for that.
Yeah.
I'm looking for that passion. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this work.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Who's next?
I would say capability. The only thing you
Hold
have.
your mic up. We want to get it all.
I would say your capability. The only thing you have is your reputation. Don't promise something that you can't deliver. If you say you're going to do it, then be prepared to do it. If a guy asks you something, and so what we try to do is make sure that we don't overstep our capacity, making sure that if we get a job, if someone asks us, can we do something, just being forthright, being honest, having that integrity, and just letting them know where you at as a business person. And I think that goes a long way when you talk about credibility, because it's all about credibility. If you mess up one time, you may not get another opportunity.
Thanks for that. All right.
You're going to be last on this.
This
I'm sorry to make you
sucks.
so nervous. We've done this a couple times before. Next show at 9. Anyway, it's kind of interesting. I think if you approach it with a lot of things that were said here with integrity and passion, I agree with all that. But if you make decisions that are based on what's best for your employees, your team members, and for your guests, your customers, I think you win every time, and everything will just start happening the right way. So it just seems to be a great pattern.
That's good, but hold on, Beth. Hang on just a second. But what's your personal brand?
My personal what?
Your personal brand.
We're talking about integrity and all.
Yeah. That's you?
And I think passion is probably the one thing that I'll say more often, because it really is. You have to wake up in the morning wanting to do what you're going to do. And if you wake up in the morning heading to something that you don't want to do, you better make a different decision.
All right. That's good. Beth, your turn.
Ooh, okay. Ditto. My personal brand has evolved over my lifetime, and so I sit right now, and I would say that my personal brand is compassion and joy.
Wow.
And appreciation. This is a wonderful world, and there's no dress rehearsal, and it's either great or it sucks. And the shitty days hopefully are far less than the great days. And I come now from a place of just deep appreciation and joy, and it's wonderful.
That's amazing. Thank you guys for that so much. So, again, I'm going to piggyback or remind us what Curtis has said. It's not necessarily always what we know or who we know, but who knows us. And so give us some advice. You can have a strong personal brand, be on the verge of launching or have launched. How do you develop a strong, solid network? What are some tips to developing a strong network? I know that's one person's question in here, and I'm glad she's here to hear it.
I would say, one of my famous saying is, and y'all can say it with me if you want to, it's not what you know, it's what. No,
Come on now.
it's not that anymore. It's who knows you. So it's all about developing the right relationships. It's all about developing and creating the right relationship. So what I tend to do and what I want to do when I go out and do stuff like that, I want to know who's the smartest person in the room. I try to introduce myself to any and everybody in that room, because you never know who's going to be that next person that's going to be able to help you fulfill your dreams. And so I think it's important that you take the time out when you go to a networking event, be ready to network. Typically what I do is I have my capability statement on my iPhone. If someone asks me for my card, I don't want them to have my business card, because guess where that business card is going? In the trash. So I email them my capability statement. So it's not what you know, it's who knows you. And it's important that as you network, as you're out there, that you try to introduce yourself to as many people as you possibly can. And one of our success stories came about, I had just happened to meet a guy. I was looking for a bank. I happened to meet a guy. The guy had on jeans. I didn't know the guy was a multimillionaire. We struck up a conversation. Just out of conversation, he was able to introduce me to a banker who was able to help me further grow my business. So it's very important that, you meet people. Don't come to a networking event and you leave without anything.
Absolutely. Brian, you kind of had your reputation precede you as well with some of the opportunities that came to you. Can you offer any advice for building that solid reputation that carries beyond you? And in the Kansas Leadership Center language, it would be know the story that people tell about you.
So, how do you build a reputation? Oh, you just do the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard. Just be a human being. Is there anything else? Yeah. Yeah, there's not. I mean, and as far as networking goes, same thing. Don't jump right in and start telling about a business. Just be a human being and relate like human beings do and talk and have fun. That stuff will come around.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I think, let's take LinkedIn for instance. Maybe off a little bit here, but LinkedIn, I don't know how many people get requests from people you never met before or don't know on LinkedIn. Do you accept it or reject it? I mean, if you can't pick up the phone and call that person or have a good conversation with them, I just don't know you. I don't know anything about you. So one of the things I kind of do is, if I don't know you, I'm not going to accept your request unless I feel like you can pick up the phone and call me with a question, or I can do the same.
Wow.
So I think you've got to have a relationship, and it's all about relationships.
Wow, that's something else. All right, I have a specific question again tonight. We are going deep. We're focusing on practicalities. You give someone a card, they give you a card. We heard what Curtis's response was with that. What is the best way to follow up from the card? You have the card, you might have had a brief exchange, but the follow-up, what is the best way? What's your advice?
Are you looking at me?
I'm gonna start calling out. I'll call you.
So I don't know if it's my age is catching up with me or the sound system, but I'm having a hard time
It's a little
tracking the
echoey.
question. Is the question, if somebody gives you a card, how do you follow up?
Yeah, what's the best follow-up? Again, there's different needs, levels of need in the room that I want to touch. And there's some people who don't know what to do with the card.
Well, I know what I do. If it's somebody I want to follow up with,
Yeah.
I follow up. I give them a call. If it's somebody I don't know, it usually goes on the stack that doesn't get followed up. I guess what I'm thinking though is if you can make some connection, whatever it is, people. I mean, if they don't act interested, don't tell them.
Yeah.
Right? But if you get somebody that acts interested, tell them. And when they quit acting interested, quit telling them.
Quit telling them.
Right? And you got to read people, and you'll get opportunities, and you won't get opportunities. And I think learning to read people, and I'll give you a piece of advice for this. The way to read people is care more about them than you care about you. And if you're zeroing in on what you're trying to say for your benefit, you're going to have a really hard time catching the cues from them about what's of interest to them. And it may be that they want to move to somebody else in the room, and you got to let them do that. But my point is, you'll see somebody who's interested. Zero in, figure out what's of interest to them. It may be an opportunity, it may not. But I think what Curtis was saying about, my guess is when he met the gentleman in jeans, he wasn't thinking, I'm going to see if I can get to the bank vice president through this guy. I suspect what he was doing is seeing another human being and connecting with him. And ultimately, from my perspective, we want to do business with people we connect with. We want to, most of us want to help people. We want to be helped. And I think it's the interpersonal communication. And if we love and respect people, that creates connection. And in my opinion, I like to do business with people I like to do business with.
Yeah.
I know that's profound, but I just like to do business with people I connect with. And so do you, and so does your potential customer.
Thank you. So don't just stack cards, act upon those cards. Thank you for handling my question with care. All right, so moving past launch, let's talk about scaling. How many of you all, by the show of hands, are poised to scale? You're on the verge, you're ready to go. Very good. With scaling, connections matter, but so does capital. Let's talk about some advice that you all would have for these folks who are looking to find capital for their companies. What's some advice that you have? You're shaking your head, so let's go ahead and start with you, Scott.
Money.
Yes,
Money.
money.
How about that? Well, I think if you start with the basic business model, but if somebody came into me and said, I'm looking for capital to do something, I want to make sure that they have the most to gain And then secondly, the most to lose.
Okay.
And I remember being in that position when we opened the first Timberline Steakhouse in 1997. And my wife's here, and we took a second mortgage on our house to buy our portion of it.
Wow.
And if you don't think I had any passion and desire to make that successful,
Exactly.
it wasn't truly a do or die, because there really is life after not winning.
Yeah.
I get that now. I'm not sure I got it back then, by the way.
Right.
But I think that if somebody has that, and I believe in what they're trying to do and understand it, it makes it a lot easier.
That's wonderful. Thank you for taking that. Who's next? Because you all have been very successful getting some capital. So share. Oh my God. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to raise capital, you just got to tell your story. I mean, you don't have to worry about your slide deck. I think you need to look at every pitch that you give as, what if my slide deck goes away, it's not there. You just got to tell a story. I think one of the greatest things entrepreneurs can do is just be good storytellers, because that's where it starts, is tell your story. And that's all it is. If you're sitting around, at the Christmas dinner table and you're telling somebody your story, that's what it's about. You sit down and just tell your story. It's not much harder than that. Don't go in prepared and wrote and memorized that doesn't come off right. Just tell your story.
Absolutely.
Be natural.
Thank you. Curtis, you grab for the mic.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to piggyback on what Brian said, and that's really what you have to do, is tell your story. A lot of times I don't even take in my financials when I meet with a banker.
Really?
I just don't, not the first meeting, because I want him to really understand what my story is. And then from there, try to develop that relationship. And then maybe at some point in time, let's talk about financials. But I want him to feel the same passion I feel. And sometimes, like Jeff said, you got to connect. And if there's no connection, then a lot of times you can tell whether it's connection. But you really got to make sure to tell your story. And then after you tell your story, make sure that you have your financials in order before you go into that bank. Because you can tell the best story you want to tell. If the financials aren't right, then they're not. It's like Scott says. But you got to have a dog in the show. So if you don't, then you're not going to get it.
Very good. Beth?
It's interesting. I was sitting here thinking scaling.
Yeah.
In the arc of Coca Dolce, we scaled every year, but we never took on investors. So I'm not sure it's salient or helpful, but honestly, we just sort of absorbed it and self-scaled, if that makes sense. We went once for financing in the 13 years that I had the company, and that was a major pitch to a bank, but it was our bank already. So I have a unique story from that perspective.
That's good. That can hit someone's story in this room. So thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. So when you're preparing to scale, you got to get more people around you. You have to get people on your team, accountants, attorneys, things of that nature. Talk about the process that you all took to make sure you had good people on your team.
I'll tell you, the first thing I did was pray. I asked God to send me the right person that had the skill set that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And I always used to tell Christine, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. And so what you try to do is find people that are smarter than you. You try to find people, and I always use the terminology, find someone that's hungry. Find someone that's hungry. And if they're hungry and they're smarter than you and they have that passion and that drive, then we can make it work.
Scott, take that, because he spoke about hungry. You have a no jerks policy. Tell them about your policy.
I know, we're giving away all the trade secrets of Freddy's. Here we go. Well, so whether it's somebody who's going to work in our office, culture is really critical to us. It's a family. We call it the Freddy's family. When we meet every 18 months with our franchisees, we actually call it a family reunion. And it is critical. And we've had people that have come in and said, hey, we want to open a Freddy's in, California. Great. And you spend some time with them and you realize that they really don't fit. It doesn't matter how much money they have. The damage to the brand that will occur if you hire a jerk is just ridiculously high. And digging out of it is tough. So that's kind of our no jerk policy. I mean, we really do believe we cannot teach somebody to be nice. We can't teach somebody to have integrity. And it is critical to have the right person, whether they're in the office or owning Freddy's somewhere in the 32 states that we are.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Yes, Jeff.
I've got a couple thoughts. The main point I want to make is it changes through time. And I think for me, this has been one of the toughest things to deal with because I don't want to be a jerk.
Right.
But if you look at the life cycle of a company, what it takes to germinate the idea and to get a lot of excitement around it, and eat ramen noodles and and go get free drinks at a place like this, and and eat supper here. And I know you do it, McGinn. I know you do it, brother. Isn't always the same skill base required when you start flowing money. You get your first set of customers. Now you got to scale. You got to go franchise. You got to do whatever it is, and you sit down and look around the room, and you love these people because they're the ones that brought you to the dance.
Yeah.
And they're not the ones, oftentimes, that can take you to the next step. Doesn't mean you jettison them, but it means they may not be the senior vice president of marketing in a $250 million company that they were doing that job when it was a startup. And I just think there's a road to walk here that's really, really difficult. And the leader's job, above and beyond any and everything else, is the health of the organization, the health of the company. Without a healthy company, you can't give back anything. And so the leader has to do that, or the leaders, and sometimes it's a group.
Right.
And you got to look at each other and go, you know what? We got to go hire that skill from the outside. We can't step up to it. And that's really hard. It's easy when you're just growing and you're adding lots of people, but when it's skill-based and it's breadth of knowledge and those things, it's really tough. But you got to do that. You got to be clear-eyed. You got to look at each other. You got to be brutally honest in a non-jerk way.
Yeah.
I mean, you
That's
do,
right.
but ultimately, if it's the good of others, which it is when you're driving the good of the company,
That's right.
you have to make those tough decisions, or you can't make those steps.
And to summarize that, again, the team required to start a venture isn't necessarily the team required to scale it. The team that starts a venture is not necessarily the team to scale it. There are some very defining and pivotal moments when you're an entrepreneur. There's high highs and there's very low lows sometimes. Sometimes you go through struggle and a failure that makes you redefine and question everything. And other times you use what you went through, that struggle, to be able to get to that next level and learn, oh, I'm not going back there. Can you all give us a moment or a word about failure? Give us some motivation around failure. Or, this is two parts, you can take it either way. There's some choices here. So either give us a word about how to handle failure, or tell us a failure that you went through and how it redefined you.
One word? You're very
Okay,
tough
you say
today.
multiple.
I'm going to say my word is learn. Because I think that, so it's really cool to sit up here and we have 232 restaurants. How cool is that? I have had more restaurant concept fail than I have win. And that's just part of it, but I've learned a lot. We affectionately call the first one my master's degree.
Yeah.
It was really, I'm not sure the concept had much validity. It was a fast food Chinese restaurant before Panda Express, which just opened their 2,000th location. And we missed location on the first one, so that's how far it went. But we had really good food, I'm just saying, and hospitality.
Thank you.
Wrong location. Learn.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Let me clarify, because you really took me literally. I grew up in the church, so as Pastor Harding says, when somebody says give us a word, that means give us a message. So thank you. Thank you for that. So y'all give us a word.
Well, I have recently worn failure like a crappy fur coat. And I would tell you that I said this in my startup grind evening, and I'll say it again. There is life after failure, and we've already said that. And it is a learning experience, but it also tests your resilience and your determination to go beyond that defining moment. Because if you are so invested and so passionate about whatever it is that your widget is, right? It is so hard. I mean, it's brutal to let it go. It becomes a part of you that then you have to let go of. But the real test, I think, of any human is the face of failure. And whether you're a bounce back person or you lay down and that's it for you. And so knowing that tomorrow is another day and understanding that it's okay, right? We're human, we make mistakes, is vitally important for any of you, regardless of the stage of your business, to at least look squarely in the face and understand that that is a possible outcome, but that you will be okay the day after that happens, or maybe 2 or 3 months after that happens.
Thank you for that. You guys sound good?
I would say, failure's not fatal. It really isn't. It's not that you fall down, it's that you have the ability to get back up. I always subscribe to the 4 P's: prayer, patience, persistence, and perseverance. And I think that, as you go along this journey, you have to be prepared for some failures, and I always subscribe to, and we talk about it in our culture, is that what God has for us, God has for us. And we truly believe that. But he also called on us to do our part as well. And so if you understand that going in, then you're okay. It's okay, I think we met and Jeff talked about the highs and lows of being an entrepreneur. It's not an easy task. And sometimes you don't want to roll out of bed because you don't want to deal with those financials, what they look like. You just don't want to deal with the investors. So, but subscribe to, it's not that you fall. It's not that you fall, because you're going to fall. It's that you have the ability to get back up.
Absolutely. Brian, you want to go?
Yeah, I think it's like a vacation, entrepreneurship. So,
Explain that.
what I mean by that is, my wife posts stuff on Instagram and Facebook once you get to your destination, right? And it's beautiful, all the sand, toes are in the sand, and everything looks great, but you didn't see the lost bags, the missed flights, the canceled flights, everything that got you there, but you're not gonna stop, right? You're going. Sometimes you wish, I'll just go back to bed. I just won't even go to the airport. I don't wanna do this anymore, and you take your kids and go home. You're not gonna do that. So entrepreneurship is kind of like that. It's great when you hit those successes, post them on Facebook, let everybody know about it and celebrate it, but there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on before that nobody sees, and that's entrepreneurship. So it's part of it.
It's part of it.
And you get up, and it determines how much you really want it when you lose your bag and you keep going.
I
right?
like that. That's so visual. So let's talk about the other
think-
side.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. If you've ever worn a girl's volleyball shirt for 3 days on vacation, then, that's how bad you want it.
Thanks for adding that.
There's some things we don't need to know. I just want to.
There we go.
Your daughter's volleyball shirt,
There
3
we
days.
go. Let's swing the pendulum the other way. Success. You guys are madly successful. I mean, being on the stage with these names, it's like, whoo. How do you manage success? Jeff?
Well, I tell people that I mentor that that's the hardest thing to do spiritually. Okay, so I'm with some of my colleagues here. When it's really tough, it is not hard to pray. In fact, it's really easy to pray when things are going tough because you don't know what to do, and you know he does, and hopefully you got a good enough connection that he'll help you know what to do. And so you go to your knees easily when things are tough. I don't know what there is about us, but when things are going good, it's like, I'm bad. You know? I really got this, you know? Thanks for all your help in the past, but I got this now. And that's when, I think that's when we're the most vulnerable. We're the most vulnerable personally, we're the most vulnerable professionally. We get arrogant if we're not careful, and I mean, there's a lot, I think, as the book of Proverbs says, you know, arrogance goes before the fall, pride goes before the fall, and there's just so much wisdom in that, and I think it's so important that we remain really connected to how frail and incapable we really are by ourselves, and that it's the efforts of lots of others that we're a part of that have helped us be successful, and it's not because we're so good. We're really lucky that we've had those people around us who helped us be successful, and God's blessing as well in all that, but success is hard to manage because we take credit for it.
Ooh, that was deep. Anybody want to follow that? Wow, that was real good. Okay. So we started, for folks, because we're coming up on our time, Jacob had asked you all, wonderful people, to submit questions ahead of time, but I get the pleasure, because no one did, to ask all the questions, so I'm not being greedy with the time. We started with those who are ready to launch. We went to those looking to scale. We looked at, again, failures, successes, and now I want to take it back to those who just have that dream. Who see all of this, see all these people, might not even feel like they belong in this room. What would you say to those people who just have a dream? What's your message for them?
Just get in the game.
Get your mic.
Just get in the game. You know what I mean? Just jump. You know what I mean? Sometimes I think that, you know, fear, you know, a lot of times you don't move because you're scared of what might happen. But what might happen may be something that's great. And so, you know, I would say just get in the game. I'm an old football player. And so all I know, you know, I remember when the coaches would call that guy, you know, he'd be on the side, over on the bench, sitting down, wanting to get in the game. And the coach get ready to say, hey, guy, you go get in the game. And he grabbed the water. Why you grab the water? Well, you want to get in the game. So get off the bench and just get in the game. Take some risks and take some chances. What's the worst could happen? Scott told you, he put up his house. What's the worst could happen? You can get another house. You know, his wife might not be happy, but you can get another house.
And let me add before anybody else speaks too, about perfectionism as well. For those who haven't started, who just have a dream, but it's got to be perfect, if that influences your answers at all too. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know what perfect is, so I wish I knew that. But, you know, it's interesting. I think you do the best job you can preparing, understand what your business model, understand financials, do everything you can, raise enough money, and then you go for it. It is get in the game. Yesterday, someone was walking in our office, and they're getting ready to open up their first restaurant. They just left our organization. And I go, how you doing? He goes, I'm scared to death. That's normal. You should be, okay? That's what it's all about. And the thing is, if you never go for it, you're never going to know what could have happened. Who knew that, you know, you go on Sundays to Doodah Diner and get corned beef hash like you guys do it? You know, if you guys never would have done that, it wouldn't have happened. So go for it.
I agree. Dreamers are our future, right? We've built this whole culture on the backs of small business and on dreamers from the very beginning. And I just so strongly believe that if you have a dream, it's worth exploring because the alternatives suck. And being able to at least acknowledge and explore that makes you a great contributor to our culture and to a better world. Happy people create a much more wonderful world than Donald Trump. Anyway, I'm done now.
The views reflected and the statements reflected by our panelists do not necessarily reflect views of Startup Grind. Brian, thank you, Beth.
That's funny. You either win or learn. That's it, right? You get off the porch and go do something. You either win or learn. And if you don't win the first time, you go back and do it again. You learn from it. So it's just that easy. It's hard for, I've got a really shy son, and he went to demo day, launch prep demo day a couple of weeks ago, and I was so proud of him because he got out and he, was shaking hands and looking people in the eye, and, he's 16 years old. Wow. And man, you either win or learn, right? So go out and do it. And now he'll be at more of these. So it's good to see that. You just got to do it.
That's very cool.
So my thought on this is some of you need to just keep dreaming.
Okay, Jeff. Okay.
Because it takes a lot more than a dream to be successful. And I think I don't believe entrepreneurs ought to bet the farm, on some dream. I think crazy dreamers do that, and the chances of success are really, really small. Entrepreneurs are people who have a vision and a passion for something and don't expect instant success. They expect a lot of hard work and a lot of grind to get there, and they are willing to do it. And I would tell you, I was not an entrepreneur when I was 32 years old. I had 2 kids, a mortgage, a wife at home, and I needed the paycheck. And I used to dream that I'd like to, be like Scott Redler and have the whole world as my playground and, be able to go anywhere I wanted, anytime I wanted, which is the crazy dream that we have, right, as entrepreneurs, that we all look at the end and go, oh, that's what I want.
Right.
But I wasn't willing to put my livelihood on the line at that point in time in my life. Okay, and so I think people need to think about what their gifts are, what their capabilities are, what their dreams are, what their circumstances are. I would never suggest that you take the money and become an entrepreneur and your kids you can't take care of your family.
Right.
That's nuts.
Right.
Okay, and I've seen people do that.
Yep.
I don't encourage that. But let me tell you, there's a lot of hours in the week. There's a lot of hours in the week, and the question is how you invest in yours. If you got a dream and you got a job to pay the bills, what are you doing? What are you doing in those other hours to advance your dream? So I think if you're an entrepreneur and you got a dream, you probably not just come to somebody else and had them fund your dream. You've done a ton of work on it late at night, on the weekend, and got your dream ready for somebody to help you with it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Keep on dreaming if you're not willing to work hard, and start working hard on your dream if you are.
That was wonderful. This was some good stuff. Before we officially close, Jacob, where'd you go? Come up. Come up to the stage. Don't anybody clap yet. Don't you clap yet. Stand right here by me.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have anything to give you but my words. Jacob applied for a license, startup grind license, that then created this space, this platform, this opportunity for us to be able to hear from the greats in our city, from a Jeff Turner, from a Brian Williamson, from a Beth Tully, from Scott Redler, from a Curtis Winden, all the others who came before us. This was Jacob's vision, and he put some action behind that. So as we clap for them, we need to clap for Jacob. Please give him a hand. You did it. So now with that, it is my sincere pleasure to turn the mic back over to Jacob. Thank each and every one of you all for being here, and I will give you the final word.
Thank you so much, Christine. I actually wasn't expecting that, and it's a little bit surreal that we came this far. I mean, this is our 12th one of this year, and it's a lot of effort and a lot of hard work's gone into this. But it's actually because of you, the community, that you guys are here. You know, somebody told me before they got here they expected 50 people to be here. There's about 200 people in this room, so you guys need to give yourselves a round of applause. So please, give yourselves a round of applause. Now, we're not finished yet. We're just getting started. So we're actually going to take the month of January off, and we'll be right back here in February. And so as you guys go on your holiday breaks and you guys start off 2018, you know, my one challenge to all of you guys is dig deep and dream big. There's a lot of people in this room that have worked really, really hard to get where they're at to this day, but I know a lot of you guys have those dreams deep down inside of you to pull them out and get something started. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go off with the rest of your evening. I invite you guys to come with us afterwards to Wheat State Distillery over here to do a little after party. We invite you to do that. And with that, let's do one more round of applause for these individuals up on the stage. Thank you for them coming. Have a great evening, and thank you so much for coming.